We're going to go ahead and get started with our work session tonight. The first item to discuss is the marina lease discussion. First up, Lynn, are you going to present, or Sherry Lee, are you going to present on behalf of the city staff? What I thought we would do is have you present again so that we refresh ourselves. It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah, why don't we're happy.
And then we'll have the harbor board come in and maybe discuss their recommendations, and then the council and the mayor, if she comes in, can toss it around the table.
Sure. I don't think we were prepared to make a
Yeah,
presentation.
but you already know what
answering
you're talking
questions.
about, so you can do it.
Yeah, we can. So where do we want to
So
start?
do you want to ask questions? Do you want us to address
Well,
it
just
that
give us
way?
a quick overview of what your vision was, maybe some of the findings that you had in your study.
Okay. Are we on? Are we on? Okay. All right, I'll go back very quickly over, we did an initial study where we started around the coast of the United States and sort of reduced the list of available city-owned marinas down to those that most represented Fairhope, or were like Fairhope, small cities, and some that were on the Loopers Trail. So we're coming down from Michigan and around. And we learned that from all of them, many of them, we started with 19, and as I kept getting dittos to my questions, took it down to 10 that were closest, that I wrote up. Basically what they all told us, several of them had leased marinas. They were very much against them because they always got them back in worse condition when they were given to them in the first place. And that they found that they were capable of, the city was capable of running a marina on its own. And that marinas make money. They were absolutely emphatic that marinas make money. Now, they were all different sizes, and granted ours is on the smaller size, but there's no reason why the city can't manage the marina portion. Then we got into the discussion of boatyard versus marina. And so we did another review. I called some of those marinas back. None of those city-owned marinas that we included had boatyards, but not because they didn't want them. They just weren't there to start out with. And boatyards, independent boatyards, existed in very close proximity. So it made no sense for them to have them. Most of them do sell fuel. That is another money maker in a boatyard, and not something to look at without recognizing the simple fact that it is a good money maker in a marina. And right now we're the only ones down in the area that sell fuel. And our dock is about to get repaired. So we have that going for us. So the bottom line was, the conclusion we came up with is, okay, we can operate the marina, we can do it efficiently, we can achieve some of the goals that we would want to have there, looking for a clean marina status. It takes time to do that, but that is a goal to strive for. It would get that marina in a condition that is appropriate for Fairhope. It would make it, we would have control over what we looked like, how we presented ourselves to the boaters. It is the boaters' gateway to Fairhope. And that was our first and primary interest. What are we presenting to the boaters out there? And if we don't control it, then we're not presenting ourselves the way we want to be presented.
So I'll add on to that just to say, I think we have a lot of options to look at. And there's discussion still to be had about the way that the lease could be renegotiated, the way, these are facts that Lynn has done such a good job exploring and researching all these marinas and doing comparisons. But we're at a moment where there are a lot of different directions we could head now. So do they stay together, the two leases? Do they separate? Are the terms renegotiated? Do we look at enforcement? Because clearly there were some terms in the last lease, and from an environmental perspective, and this isn't coming from me, but from the Harbor Board and our Environmental Advisory Committee, there were things that were not done that should have been done. And that's not, a condemnation of anyone. That's just what I've learned. So there are things like that we can look at in addition. But the facts are, as Lynn stated, economically, there are marinas can make money. I know there's a lot of concern that we've heard from Seacliff Drive residents about what that might look like. What the marina, if the city were to take a little more control of it in some way, might look like. And there is no intention of developing anything different down there, just really reinvesting in the infrastructure and cleaning it up. and having more revenue to reinvest back into it. So,
Shirley, you, and I apologize, I didn't get back to you today, I've been tied up all day, but you had mentioned, and I can't remember whether you sent me a text or an email a couple of hours ago, I glanced at it, but you want to share with the council just that thought that you had. I wanted to give you that opportunity, rather than respond, I'd give you that opportunity tonight to share that thought, and I believe it was basically just
I've had so many
having
thoughts
basically it was just a clean slate and saying, have people maybe propose what their vision is for that.
oh, right, yeah.
area,
So
is what you
one
were
of the thoughts was, and Lynn and I discussed this earlier today, was to put it out there, have an RFP, so people come to us with their ideas rather than us structuring something for people to respond to. And that way we could have a independent committee review the responses to that RFP and let us know, yes, these are people that clearly know what they're doing. And they're coming to us showing their viability up front rather than us saying, here's what we want. And I've never run a marina, have y'all? We may or may not know what to include in that, but if we had an RFP and have people respond to it, then they could come to us with new ideas and we could review it.
The thought comes from one of the marinas in Michigan, actually, which is a seasonal marina, but they have a management agreement. And that's more than leasing. It's a management agreement. You're almost in a partnership. Where they asked for information, how to run something from people who knew how, and then they worked together on how that lease, if you want to call it, or management agreement would look like, and it became a partnership.
Council, the reason I wanted that brought up was that, that's kind of an option that hasn't been brought to the table yet, and I guess my only worry about that is, are we so close to the, renewal time? It doesn't mean that we couldn't do, and I don't know if we can do a month-to-month extension, but it would, if we got proposals back and we didn't like any of them, for instance, the worst case scenario, we did that, and we didn't like any of them, then we'd have to put it out for bid with specifications, and then, we may have lost at that point in time. I don't know, I'm just saying.
I don't know why you couldn't do the two at one time, not put a lease out designed by the city, but have that ready in your back pocket while you're taking a look at an option that might be better overall. I mean, why not take a two-pronged approach to it?
And I think the 120 days is for us to just notify the current
Mhm.
lessors as to whether or not the city intends to renew it as is.
Right. 120 days is a good period of time for us to work out what we want there.
Yeah.
Really
I
is.
think that we could tell the current leaseholder that we are definitely going to be restructuring the lease. Is that safe to say, Council?
Yes, it is.
I think that we can take a straw poll that it will not look like what it looks like today.
Thank you. That's a huge step
That's
forward.
one thing that we can say in this work session pretty conclusively, that it will not look the same. All right, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, that's a huge, if leasing is the way we go, there's so many opportunities we have to put in there, protecting our environment and representing the city, so.
So do y'all have questions, Council, for Lynn or Sherry Lee, in regards to anything that they had said?
Not at this time.
So Mayor, to catch you up, we were just kind of getting a quick overview from the staff as to what they had given us before, but since it's been several weeks, we were just getting a little refresher on all that.
Please feel free to call me. I mean, I've spent a lot of time, and I have a drawer full of studies. But please, if you have any questions, please feel free to call me.
I have a question for you, Lynn. On a marina of similar size, and when it's kind of hard to compare apples to apples, I'm sure that each one are unique in how our boat yard operates and our marina operates, but as best you can, and maybe we have to be careful of discussing numbers and financials in here, which is why in executive session we had on there to discuss this if we have to discuss cost points. But it'd be nice to know what kind of monies that these city-managed marinas are making profit-wise. And the reason is because if we make the same profits, but then we have to spend it on labor, then we're just back to, is it easier just to lease and not be in the business of running a marina? I've heard from a lot of citizens that we shouldn't be in the business of running a marina. We should just worry about running the city. And so I think it's fair to say, well, if it's all going to come out in the wash and be the same revenue to the city, do we want to grow government by taking this on?
First of all, we should be in the business of protecting our assets, and that's the way I look at it. I couldn't give you specific numbers now, but I will be happy to call these marinas back. I have developed some nice relationships. These guys love to talk about their business. And I can give them a call. We have some numbers that we worked up that we've already presented, but you're asking the question about the other marinas we spoke to and what they're making.
Even if you jotted those numbers down and gave it to us for us to toss around in the executive session, it gives us an idea, it gives us a price point to discuss.
You want it for tonight?
If you can't, don't worry about it. I'm not putting you under the gun
We
to give
we
it to
can
us
provide
tonight,
you the sheet that we've worked up that is a comparison. I did go through and pull numbers from other marinas, and I'll go up and get that for you.
but- Okay, that'd be great. You'll agree with that?
Also posted it online.
I'm sorry?
I posted it.
Oh, good, okay, all right. But I'll go get you hard copies so you can have them for the
Okay.
executive session.
All right. Do y'all have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And next, I want to ask Skip Jones and Bob Riggs with the Harbor Board to come back and give us a refresher on what the Harbor Board's recommendations have been.
I need to be very circumspect in saying what the Harbor Board's recommendation is. As I reported previously, we've had sort of contentious discussions about this. I think we can say, I believe, say clearly that we do agree, and the council indicated in the most recent boatyard lease that you were going to merge the two leases and bid it out.
Let me clarify that. I think the reason that we had the leases expiring on the same date was to just allow for any option, whether to keep them separate or to combine if we had chosen. So it was more just to keep all options on the table.
Then the second aspect of that is, I think we're all in agreement, we need a boatyard in Fairhope. We need to be able to pull boats, we need a device to step the mast and take the mast down on sailboats going up and down the Tenn-Tom River. So the boatyard function needs to be maintained. I think we all agree on that.
Let's see if we can get a straw poll from the council on that. Is that something that we all agree on? I know the Harbor Board.
Yes, I would say without us running it though.
Yeah, I mean, the city has to have a boatyard, and then this can be run by a private individual.
Okay. Mayor?
Absolutely.
Kevin, you have a thought? Okay.
Robert, one interesting thing, we have over 300 in-the-water boats right here in our basin and around Fairhope. That's quite a clientele. Every 2 years, you got to have a boat bottom, the antitoxin paint put on the thing. So there's some business here that I think could be a viable business for someone operating that. But we need the boatyard. Skip,
Well, a couple of things. One aspect of this that we've developed a little bit is that's a big piece of property, and it's being used now like it's been used for 20-some-odd years. I believe there are better ways to use that property with the same activities, with the marina, the shrimp boat docks, the boatyard, and parking and attractive facilities for people who are leasing slips and so forth. I think this is an opportunity for us to get somebody who's in the business, or maybe more than one person, to come look and give us some advice, as Lynn said, about how better to use that property. And this isn't to say that it would exclude any interests that are there now from the resources and area they have, but my expert thinks that we can use the same property we've got a lot better. The shipyard can operate more efficiently. The slip lessees that the city slips could have a better and more attractive place. The shrimp boat people can have more privacy and parking. All that can be done, and I think that needs to be addressed as part of, whatever we're going to lease or manage. I think we can do a better job of defining what it is. That's one point. Another point to Lynn's comment, I have had what I consider to be the best shipyard operator in 100 miles of either side of our area come look at that facility. Not to be a lessee, but just to say, what do you think of this? Can we better use this property? Do you have any ideas? We've got some good resources and people who are willing to help us in terms of defining what to do. So I definitely agree with Lynn, and we don't have to go too far to find these people. They're in our
Can you,
backyard.
can you find a way to do this on parallel paths so that we don't lose a lot of time?
Sure.
I think so. The other thing I would tag on to that, the clean marina status is something that I have not heard a disparaging word about that concept. We've been, through the years, you go over there and they pressure wash a boat bottom, all that toxic is just flushed into the creek. We've got to stop doing that. And all the aspects of the clean marina program are in parallel with what we are as a city and as a community. I think the tag on to that is, you all know, I think I've had each of you over there for a walk through, the appearance and the maintenance of that facility does not reflect Fairhope. And moving forward, I certainly hope that we can, however we operate it, we can keep it looking like Fairhope. And I would really point to Fly Creek Marina and Jeannie Paradise up, and what she's doing up there. That's a working yard, lots of boats in there, lots of parking, lots of activity. It looks nice, it's squared away, it's clean, and I think that's the model that we ought to try to emulate with our city facility.
Let me ask you that. You said a working yard. Is that a working boat yard there? Are they
Well,
doing
she's
mechanical
got
work there?
heavy boats in, they're working on them in there, repairing them, putting them in and out of the water, and I would characterize it as that, and
But there's a pretty low.
low
limit
level, yeah. You're
size.
working on an
You gotta
outboard.
be able to pull it out with that forklift.
Yeah.
It's not,
The most toxic thing we're doing, Jack, in our boat yard is boat bottoms, the anti-fouling paint. As you know, that's bad stuff, and we have not been containing that and using that. The other thing is we're handling fuel over there, and that we're going to address that in a good measure with rebuilding the fuel dock. But still, there's some issues there, and of course, when you have transients coming in that are living on the boat, and all these boats that are in the water, you've got to have sanitary disposal situation. We have a system there, but I think it's rudimentary, would be my
A pump out
characterization.
station?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
one quick summary. I think it makes sense to combine the two activities into one operation for two reasons. One is the employees of the boatyard, or an employee of the boatyard, can be the quote harbor master for the slips. I think if one entity was running the slip leasing the marina, and one was running the boatyard, I think you'd have a considerable duplication of personnel. I think also you'll find that a boatyard operator who was being paid a reasonable amount to manage the slips would, and you can, let me start again, you can definitely find an operator who could do both those things and do them the way we'd like to see them be done. And some people have been in touch with me that I think meet those criteria.
Did the Harbor Board have a recommendation on who should manage not who, let me say, whether or not it should be city managed or should be,
No, we kind
Leased.
of,
or did y'all stay out of that for
Well,
a
no,
minute?
to go back to Jack, our whole discussion in the Harbor Board was predicated on that element of the boatyard lease, the extension. And it says in there that we're going to combine the two leases and bid it out as an entity, approximately 6 months before the expiration. So that was our marching orders, and we really didn't look beyond that. Although I will say there were a couple of members of the Harbor Board who, just as our council members did, we don't need to get in the boat business, and so a couple of expressed that, but we never formally took a motion or had a vote or anything about managing. We were working on to give advice to the council on renewal of the lease pursuant to what's in the current lease.
Council, anybody? Questions?
What I was gonna say is they did come up with an idea to get a survey done on the property. They're looking at a 10-year lease and a fixed rate, minimum rate to charge for basically a flat rate. That's the three things that they did come up. We did take a vote on, and overall, I understood the consensus of the group that they did not want the city to run
right.
the boatyard, period. I mean, it was pretty adamant for it.
Okay.
But-
We never took a
but
vote
you're
on
right,
it.
There was no
No,
vote
yeah.
taken, there was no discussion really on it other than back and forth.
Yeah.
I do, Kevin, the point of the survey was, I think, to enable us to see what
Correct.
property is there and how we could best use it.
Correct. Because at the present, I don't think we have a viable survey of the property as it stands, or if we do, nobody's been able to put their hands on
Well, I had a question on the, so the 5,000 was the recommendation for the minimum lease, and the 10-year term, was that a minimum or a max on that 10 years, or they just felt like that's the number that y'all recommend?
That, I think that was a number, assume someone went in there and started from scratch. Let's say the boatyard, I think, would be the big thing. An operator is going to have a travel lift, going to have to lease it or buy it, going to have to buy the equipment, all the stands and jacks, and assuming we had a new operator, all of that would have to be put in place. So I think the feeling is that there, you know, you need to give that entity some time to make it work out to be profitable. And Kevin, the 5,000, I think the discussion there was, we had a couple of members on the harbor board who'd been small business persons, and we've shown figures about the potential revenue and the actual revenue over there. Obviously, there's a flip side to that. What is it going to cost to operate it? You know, man the fuel dock, have a dock master there to welcome people in and put them in slips, and, you know, all of those activities. So there's going to be some offsetting expense. And so I think the feeling was that, you know, if we get somebody in here, make it where they can make a profit and have an incentive to do a good job and make it profitable for them.
I think that's a good point, Bob. If we set a price, and I'm not talking price right now, I have figures in my mind, but if we set it so high, we're not going to get interest, because they are in the business of making money. When they do that, they don't want to do it out of the goodness of their heart. It might be their living, but it's still their living. Yeah. And so we do have to keep that in mind when we come up with that. That was the question I had for Lynn and Sherry Lee, is to, while it looks like if the city operates it, we're making a lot more money, and we might. I mean, it remains to be seen. That a lot of that money is spent on employee salaries and benefits and fringe. So we have to take that into account. Mayor, you had a question, I believe.
No, I was just going to comment that I think it was always the consensus, and that we want the boatyard to be competitive bid. We want an entrepreneur there, and it's definitely a big service to the boats and the slips. You know, I was just saying that, you know, taking advantage of the opportunity to invest the money that's going to need to be invested, and it's a lot of investment to really bringing it up to the standard that Fairhope really should have. We do need that money to offset it, but we do need to look at everything, you know, what the cost would be for us to run it, and et cetera. But I think, like I said, the decision today is about just notice of what we intend to do with the leases, not really the specifics of financial.
The maintenance issue, which both the mayor and Bob touched on, is interesting, because to maintain the facility is going to take money. If the city operates it, they're going to pay for the maintenance of the facility. If they lease it to somebody, and the terms of the lease provide that the lessee is going to pay for the maintenance facility, those dollars have got to be, you know, you've got to realize that you can't take those dollars away from the lessee if you're going to ask him to do the maintenance. What I'm saying is the maintenance is going to be done, and I think you've got to realize it's going to be, those dollars are going to come out of the gross revenue. Whether the city takes the gross revenue here and puts the maintenance back into it, or whether they take gross revenue and lets the lessee maintain it, I think that's something you need to think about carefully, the different aspects of it and the different net results, or maybe the same net results. The maintenance is there. Whether the city does it, you know, one thing might be to lease the boatyard and the marina, and charge them a big chunk of money, and the city does the maintenance. That way you know that it's going to get done, and you get the money from the lease to do it. Now, that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is don't charge them much money and then tell them to maintain it, and that hadn't worked well in the past.
That's what I'm saying. It hasn't worked well in the past, and I think we have to learn from what's happened in the past.
We have to just write a good lease to protect our
Well,
assets.
I think it's more that we have to stay on top of that lease as opposed to writing. I think the lease, in essence, was written in a pretty good form. It's just, again, for 30 years, nobody paid a bit of attention to that marina at all. And now all of a sudden they're wanting to pay attention to it now, but it's just aged so much that it just needs a tremendous amount of work done on it.
Kevin, one thing too, in traveling around marinas, the two nicest marinas in the state of Alabama, Demopolis and up at, northern Florence, I'm brain dead, okay. Both of those are privately owned, but in real collaboration with their respective cities. You go around the other way, Dunedin, Florida, Gulfport, around to St. Augustine, Georgetown, South Carolina. There are a bunch of city-managed and controlled marinas, small marinas, that appear to be very viable. Now, I don't know the financial situation, Jack, but they are, they're there, and when you pull in their vibrant operations, they're squared away and seem to be working well. So what I'm saying is I think it can be done successfully, whatever direction is chosen. And again, I think with both of y'all, write a hard lease, and Kevin, you're absolutely right. Somebody's got to watch the store, and if we go that way.
Questions, Mayor, for them? Jay?
I only had one other thought. The ones you're talking about, the marinas you're talking about, they've got over an average of 200 boat slips, where we have 62. So the money is quite a bit different when it comes to that. Whereas running one, I'm looking down at these, they've got one guy and either two full-time people, or one guy and one full-time and assistant, or this and that type of nature, and their profit margins are pretty good. Whereas when you only have 62 slips, the personnel is the same as what these guys have got, but you're just not, the profit margin is just not there because you don't have the inventory that they have.
And I think that goes, Kevin, to me, to what was just said, Skip just said here. It looks to me if the two entities are working together, there ought to be some economies. One person is answering the phone, one person is scheduling, hauling the boat, and that same person is assigning a slip to a transit coming in. So it looks to me that, and again, looking at this, that keeping the two together would make an awful lot of sense. And you're right, we've got 62 slips there that are not shrimp boat slips, and that's the revenue stream. Mm-hmm. Now we've got the fuel dock, which should be a profitable entity, and then hopefully the boatyard should be a profit center. But if you put those together, it seems to be it would be possible for it to make it economically viable for an operator.
That's all I had.
Councilman Brown? Councilman Conyers? Let me ask the council and the mayor specific questions then.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone that has a strong opinion today, and this is not binding, this is just a straw poll, is there anybody that is of a strong opinion that the city should manage or not manage this? And then to follow up on that question, is there anyone that has a strong opinion as to whether or not we should combine? We established earlier that we were all in favor of a boatyard, but is there an opinion of whether or not the two should be combined? I'm just trying to bound the problem now so we can narrow this down as we give instructions to the mayor and the staff to go out and put this out for bid, or to not put it out for bid, or exactly what we gotta narrow down our wishes.
I think if I were gonna specify, I would say I would cancel the existing lease, encourage Eastern Shore Marine to bid on the RFP with, open that up with whoever, and I would maybe combine the two and put it out for bid. I think that Skip brought up a good point about some redundancies there. If you have the city managing the marina and then someone else running the boatyard, and I think you could have less long-term, employees on the city's side if you're just letting someone else handle both. And if we can get a high enough lease for those two combined, then it's going to equal the same net effect to the city.
So what I've got is combine, put it out for lease through a bid process, basically,
That's
in a nutshell. I know there's a lot more to it than that, but.
In a nutshell, yes.
Okay. Councilman Brown?
Yeah, definitely combine. I like the idea of, sending it out and getting people's opinion, RFPs, and see what their vision might be, whether or not there needs to be a working boatyard down there or not. Sometimes you might try to be a little bit of everything and should focus on one area rather than kind of do too much.
Just like I said, based on all of the municipal marinas that Lynn took the time to call, quite a few, 100% said that if you're going to have the marina, their choice would be that the city run it. And we can still do research as far as what that would cost and what the income would look like. But, you know, we wouldn't be doing it to try to make a big profit. We're doing it so that it is maintained at a high level that our citizens expect, and it is a gateway to Fairhope.
Well, that brings up another point that Skip mentioned that I thought was a great idea, is to have the city maintain it so that it meets our standards, but just build it into the lease, into the price of the lease.
This is going to be a huge investment. Like I said, I don't know that it's something that a private business could afford to do. You know, this is something that we need to, there's a lot of infrastructure needs right now. And we do have to be environmentally good stewards of this property. I don't think there's going to be a better time to at least try it out than now. It's not like the city's going to sign its own lease for a number of years. I think if you're going to try something and see if it's better, now's the time to do it.
Thank you.
Something else, Jack, these 7 marinas that are listed on this sheet, none of them have a boat yard, you know, that are city run.
But like I said in other meetings, you know, entrepreneurs, I'd love to have more than a boatyard there. You know, people have mentioned, you know, seafood, and we have the paddle boards, and people can rent canoes. I mean, I think you can provide infrastructure for a lot of entrepreneurs, and we should. But it is not the city's job to subsidize entrepreneurs.
Jack, if I could just add.
Yeah, come up here if you don't mind, Lynn. Sure.
To Robert's comment, most of the city-owned marinas that we looked at, and even those we didn't write up, did not have a boatyard. We are unique in that aspect. Like I said, they had them nearby, and none of these 7, and these are additional marinas to the ones that we studied, so you could almost take up to 17 that we've looked at.
Right.
The interesting part in all of that is their fuel sales were important to them, and you can see on there where fuel sales set into their bottom line. The maintenance of the marina itself and access to boatyard facility. Now, we don't have to have a huge major repair boatyard, but we can take care of, and I think it would behoove us to be able to take care of smaller repairs, painting, power washing, that sort of thing. I'm not well versed in that, but I know there's a big difference between what a Saunders does down at Orange Beach and what we would do here. We're not looking to be an Orange Beach boatyard. I just don't think we could possibly. The other thing to bear in mind, too, I found it very interesting that there is not another leased city marina in all of the Gulf Coast. If it's city-owned, they're operating it. And they end up as enterprise funds. That doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to set up an enterprise fund, but every single one of them is self-sustaining. And they end up having their own monies regardless of their size. They end up having their own monies for their repairs.
Lynn, what is there's some big numbers on other revenues. What are examples? Because that's something that, like, in my mind right now, I'm not envisioning. What would mean? Because those are some really big numbers.
Well, in some cases,
what are those?
some
examples?
cases there are, they've leased out space to charter boats, charter businesses. There's actually a
That
marine.
doesn't come out to dockage fees or?
Well, no, they get a percentage, they charge them dockage fees, and they get a percentage of the business. And that's other funds.
Like
There's-
franchise fees.
Yes, exactly, like a franchise fee. Interesting, there's one that has a hairdresser with 5 operators at the marina. And she pays not only for her dock, but for her parking for her customers. And she is turning an excellent business, and it's not in that particular listing, it's in one of my original studies, and she's handing over a lot of money to the marina every month. That's not the kind of business we want to get into. I don't think that's the kind of traffic. We don't want all of those extra people coming down.
Dolphin tours.
But if we were, let's say, for example, to reestablish a fish market that used to be there,
Goose.
that would be something that would come in other income.
Well, right now, I guess that the 17 turtles.
That would be
fall
part of
under
it.
Other
Exactly.
income. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. Kevin, any?
Yeah, I
comments?
just don't believe that for the best money for your buck is with the city running this, because I believe you can do a better job of managing it through lease, doing a one lease proposal with a flat rate. I think we can generate more income in order, and then we do and fix up what we need to fix up with the piers, and we control that area of it. And I believe just the 62 slips, I just don't think we're in those big numbers that they're talking about. Matter of fact, I know we're not. And I feel that this process would generate a lot more income for us to do a lot better job of fixing this system up and the boat slips in the entire area up.
Jay?
I mean, I think my position is it ultimately comes down to revenue generated. And I think the mayor said that maybe if we had time, we could put together a proposal of exactly what the city's business model, they own the marina and the boatyard, what their proposed profits would look like. I mean, and to me, I think it does make sense to combine them, but I think you need to look at apples to apples, what it would look like if it was a leased out, minus expenses, minus repairs, minus everything else, versus if the city owned it, minus repairs, salaries, benefits, all those things. And then ultimately, I mean, I think I said this the last time, so if they're close, then ultimately it's easier to just lease it out to somebody else, so the city's not taking on that burden of operating itself. But I mean, I think the things that everybody can agree on is that the contract that we have right now needs working. There's improvements that need to be made at this facility, both the boatyard and the marina, and that, you know, we need to maintain those at a high standard, because they are, you know, something that Fairhope is judged by with people coming in. And so I think we just need to get a good apples to apples comparison to make the right decision.
Okay. I tell you, the part I hate about going last is I never have an original idea.
We're able to.
I think that I agree with what you said, Jay, that, you know, we need to keep it up to, and Mayor, you said this as well, I'm going to call it a minimum standard, that, you know, whether we decide to take it over, we need to bring it up to that minimum standard. If we combine them and put it out as one lease, and I'll go ahead and say, you know, that I'm in favor of combining them for, you know, well, if the city runs it, obviously they would be combined, but I wouldn't want the city to run one portion and maybe not the other. So
Well, I definitely don't think we
yeah,
need to run the.
I'm in favor of combining them, and I'd like it to come to a high standard. But as Lynn said, she's never managed a marina. She asked us if we had, and I'm not in favor of growing government, and I'm in favor of the people that are in the business of knowing how to efficiently run a business, and I think that they could run it more efficiently. And does that mean that if the city took it over, we wouldn't make $1,000 more a month or $2,000? I don't know. I can't split hairs like that and wonder if we left $15,000 or $20,000 on the table on something like this, on such a expensive piece of property. Maybe we would, but eventually that government is the gift that keeps giving, and I'm not in favor of that. So I would say that my own thoughts would be to combine them, and now to make it a little bit more complex, is I would like to maybe follow the parallel paths of something that Sherry Lee touched on, is to put it out for bid, but also, you know, that might look like something specific that we can talk about, or that might be give someone a blank canvas and tell us to come back with what they propose to do with it. We might put stipulations on that as to say, well, you can't get rid of the boat slips, or, you know, we want a boatyard or something like that, but let them come back. It may be something that we haven't thought of. It may be more complex, or it may be less complex. It may be something that's simplified that generates the same amount of revenue. It may be generates the same amount of revenue but decreases traffic on that street. So kind of in favor of looking on, you know, parallel paths for that. But we need to get on it soon. And I think that we really ought to, in executive session, toss around what we expect, and no decision will be made in executive session. We can't take votes in there, but, we need to try to determine what we expect to get from that piece of property, what is reasonable to get that. Can I get any kind of agreement on that?
The other thing that we have to emphasize, Bob brought this up, was the environmentally sound boatyard, boat slips. It has to be green, or what was the term?
Clean marine.
Clean marine. It
I
has
heard
to-
all parties agree to that.
Yeah, it has to be that.
Okay. Anybody have any final comments on this? I think we've got some things that we can all agree on here. All right, thank you, Harbor Board, Lynn, Shirley, thank you all for that. Quail Creek Clubhouse update.
Good afternoon. I'm David Mugg. I'm a senior architect with with EDT Engineering Design Technologies, and this is Lawrence Wilson.
How are you?
And today, what we would like to do is basically just give you an update. We were originally commissioned to do some studies to start with on the exterior facade replacement for this facility. This first slide here is just an overview of just the front approach of it, and there's the other side of the facility, just for those that may or may not be familiar with it. There's looking at two other views of it, just in general, so that you get a feel. It's an existing building built in the 80s that was originally built out of EFIS system, and has experienced some failures within the EFIS itself, whereby the insulation was installed directly to the existing OSB board, and thereby it acts just like a sponge, and so over years it deteriorates, and when it gets saturated with water, which is what had happened. And this is some pictures of the rear side, back on the back deck of the golf clubhouse, just illustrating some of the other areas there. And then this gets into some of the details of what we found there. When we did some core samples of the area, pulled off the EFIS, and what you see on there is right there. This is not picking up real good, but you can see the OSB board is completely gone. And on the interior, if you'll notice, those studs don't go all the way to the bottom anymore. They are missing about the bottom foot, which is not good. And this is may or may not be a real isolated incident. It looks like it's pretty much occurring beneath the windows, as you'll see right here. The top left picture right there illustrates the caulking failure beneath that one area where you saw the severe damages there. Caulking has completely failed, and thereby causing the other things. There's some other outlying things we noticed while we were there. The concrete slab has got some issues with cracking along the column lines there, and also you'll notice the bottom one right there, the column is cracking in two directions on the corner there that's adjacent to the deck. And so anyway, we realized, okay, we've got a problem here, so what do we do about it? And the old saying goes that a problem well defined is a problem that's half solved. So that's where we began here with our discussions, and what we've done is to construct a computer model of the facility, mainly for study purposes. To start with, simulates your existing building, and then we cut a couple of sections through there, which we'll go into some detail on, explaining what our proposal is. The scale on that's not going to be real legible at this level, but and it's probably still not too much more legible right there. But let me explain the system to you. And I brought along an example that's similar to that product. This, as you'll recognize, is actually an EFIS system.
Can you go real slow for Robert, please?
Yeah. Yeah, as if he needs that. We're not proposing an EFIS system, by the way. This is just an example that we're using to show how what we're trying to do is to combine the efficiency of two different products with two separate and distinct advantages. The EFIS system has always had the advantage on energy. They're hard to beat in that area. However, as you see by what we've just looked at, they also have an inherent problem. If you don't install them correctly, they fail, and that's what happened. This one here happens to be this is just an example. We're using the drive-it outsulation, as they call it. And it's a drainable solution. What happens is you'll see that there's a crack formed right there by this parge coat where they form these ribs in as they put the base coat on, put the insulation in, it leaves a gap. And what happens is it drains out the back up against this waterproof or the vapor moisture barrier behind. And then it drains out the bottom. As you see the holes on the bottom right there is where it drains out. It's designed to drain internally so that it won't do what that did. It drains down the vapor barrier side, the moisture barrier side. We will not have this part. We would have the insulation. The board would be mounted vertically here, and then we would nail hardy boards over above that. Let's see. Oh, and what we're going to be doing one innovative thing that's a little bit different, and that is this right here. This is, you'll recognize this is probably a product that many of you may have that you use on your windshield of your car on a bright sunny day. This is an aluminum panel that's used. It deflects radiant energy, and it really actually works very well. I put this up in my attic and stapled it to the bottom of the rafters, and it cut the heat down very, very significantly in my attic area. It does the same thing beneath the hardy panel, and that's what we'd be doing, is we'd be applying this over the top of this insulation stapled to the vertical 1x3s at 16 inches on center, and then the hardy planks applied to that, at the outside of that, which makes a radiant deflector right behind the hardy board. And it's also, it does not lock in the perms because it's perforated. So in other words, it allows the moisture to pass, but not, the vapor that is, but not the moisture. And so anyway, the system is kind of a bit of an innovative system, and it's a little different, but it will greatly enhance the energy quality. So what I was going to do, there's the upper view of it. We're going to be using what's known as a 5-pond type system, which is basically it's a PVC or fiberglass. They make both type system, and it simulates any type of precast. It looks just like precast. It's finished. It comes finished. You don't have to ever paint it. It's totally maintenance free. In fact, everything we're doing with this exterior is designed without maintenance. In other words, that's what we're trying to do.
Can I stop you and ask you a question about that?
Sir.
I'm going to call it a drip pan for lack of the drain there with the holes in it. Over time, as the materials might degrade a little bit, and you might get some particulates in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this with window sills. They're made to drain, and especially down at the beach, they get blowing sand gets in there, and eventually those weeping holes get clogged. And then those window casings, which are most of the time made out of aluminum, they will corrode over time, and then you'll see the water intrusion beneath the window to go through the bottom of the window casing and just right down into the wall, and
it dams up.
And because it's dammed up, the moisture can't run out. On this, over time, I would think that nothing's infallible, but what can we expect of the life of that to be?
Well, they've had a pretty good performance record with this, and these are continuous all the way down the whole length of the wall. So it would, I guess it's possible, but as far as probable,
and I realize that it's not exposed. It's on
that's
the
correct.
interior, where the particulates would have to fall, and hopefully it wouldn't.
No, this drains the outside, and so and the caulking would be applied behind that over here, not
on
it.
I've even seen them caulk over the manholes. That's
Now,
extremely
that's
common.
dangerous, yeah. When you do that, yeah, that is not good. So, but yeah, that's one thing that we would be careful to make sure that doesn't happen. But as long as those weep holes are maintained, it should be a continuous, these things, as you can see, they're about 3 inches on center.
That'd
So
be at the bottom of the, that's at the bottom
all
of
the way
wall. So
around.
they could be maintained a little bit, even if you put a little
Yeah.
air or
Yeah.
something on
Sure.
there. Okay.
Okay.
Get a bigger drill.
All right, yeah.
Make the
I've
hole
seen
bigger.
that. I've seen that too.
So, okay. But some of the advantages of this system, as we've outlined in here, the first of which, this innovative system really combines the advantages of both the two systems. You get the insulation and energy values of the EFIS system, but then we get the maintenance-free aspects of the hardy board, which is basically is a cementitious product. It's pre-colored, pre-finished. You don't paint it, or I would not advocate painting it. But now you've got some existing hardy board out there. That part would be painted to match what we're putting up so that we will match out with each other. But it's undercover anyway. So the likelihood of having to repaint that again is probably, at least 10 or 15 years down the road, and it's not a real significant portion of the building anyway. So then the this exterior solution offers a maintenance-free, as we've mentioned, and the introduction of this EPS board is actually going to bring us up to speed with the 2012 Energy Code, which I believe already adopted here. Plus, it also brings us a long way toward the 2015, which requires a 50% upgrade of existing on the 2015. I don't think that's been adopted yet. But we're also in the process of this. We'll be introducing some, we'll be able to put in some hurricane clips. There are some that are there. They don't look like they're going to meet what would be the 140 mile an hour or the coastal wind loads that you have down here. I don't think what you've got is compliant with that. So what we would be doing is supplementing that to bring it a little bit more into that area. But of course the roof structure itself is not part of the scope of our work. So what we're doing is just, while we're there, we might as well be putting that in place. And then the other one would be this addition of the aluminum foil is going to reduce the energy consumption by reflection of the radiant energy. And then the windows that we're using, see, I'm not keeping up here. We're using an IZ3, which is an impact zone 3 window. Which would be what you would have to have for this area down here with the coastal wind loads. And that would be replacing all the existing windows. That will also give you insulated glass now, which is not previously there. It's an argon-filled glass, and it will also have a much better energy performance than what you currently have. All in all, everything we're doing with the exterior is upgrading your energy levels and doing this at a very economical approach. The base system, of course, offers a much better moisture barrier, as we've mentioned. This is a sprayed-on moisture barrier. In other words, typically you're seeing Tyvek and those sort of things are good, except for the fact that sometimes workmanship gets into play. Sometimes the tape comes loose. There's all kinds of things. Depends on what kind of tape they use. There's a lot of things that would be necessary for that performance to really work well. So anyway, the next slide, what we're doing is there's a lot of things in our scope that we are not addressing. And some of those things we're just basically making mention of. Some of these will be covered in a later session here, I believe, with the golf course themselves. So we'll kind of go through some of these. These were just brought up and mentioned to us as design professionals. We've listed those down. The ADA issues, that you got some deterioration of the wood deck, and then the structural failure of the deck areas. And then there's some roof structural non-compliance things that we've discussed. and the inability, to compete, and some of these things of this nature are just issues that I think need to be covered separately. And so, but that is, all of this comes down to, all right, well, so what is our estimated cost projection? We ran cost numbers on this system here using the system that I've just finished describing, and we find that we are coming in right under $250,000 for complete facade replacement and upgrade using the energy approach that we're describing here, bringing you to a better level of performance energy-wise in all ways that we've described.
And all those energy savings are going to pay for all that, right?
Well, they are going to hurt you.
you.
Yes, sir. They will contribute towards that. Any questions that we can clarify?
Questions, Mayor or Council?
Okay.
So the scope of that, for that estimate is, how much of that exterior of the building, is that the entire exterior?
Yes, sir. And that includes the wrapping of the columns that are pretty well eaten up to. You got those columns out front that were basically built out of particle board. And those, you can kick them and they just crumble there. The structurally, we can't tell what's damages are inside in the structure right now. We won't know that until you get that part explored a little bit more. Without us doing invasive work, I think we're going to have to assume that this is mostly just a facade damage, but we will find out whether or not the structure of those columns has been affected by that as we go. And there are a lot of unforeseen things that always happen as you get into these. And we have made allowances with this. We've allowed 15% contingency, plus we've allowed an additional contingency for unforeseen conditions. We have both, and they're both about 15%. So that is built into those numbers right there. So we're basically anticipating as you uncover things, you find things. And that's typical with this type of a project.
Did that include repair of the concrete deck? That is not included?
No, sir, it does not.
Is that repairable?
Yes, it is, but it may not be as simple. We'd have to get in there and study the structure of that before we could give you a good answer on that.
Now, these gentlemen hadn't addressed it, Council, but there were a couple of bullet points up there about, they've addressed how to technically fix the issues that we have right now, repair and correct them for the future. But, I think when we look at that cost, we have to talk about what do we want this clubhouse to look like in 2 years or 5 years. Do we want to expand on this? There was something in the service up there that was a bullet that these things won't address. But we need to think about that maybe, you don't have to, but I want you to think about it in broader terms of overall upgrades of the facilities out there. And then, oh, by the way, I actually had lunch the other day. I took my family there for lunch. So how many people in the room took their family to Quail Creek to eat lunch today? I had to pick up a golf club, so it was a good excuse. And I was stopped by several golfers, and they gave me a heads up that there is a petition going around to replace the greens out there. And that's super expensive, and it's something. They caught me off guard, and I didn't have an answer for them. But I gave them the old political answers. Well, look into it. But it's something that we ought to consider, that if we want to think about renovating the greens, and it might be over several years. We do it piecemeal because the bullet was made. What do we want to attract there? Do we want to be a municipal golf course? Most municipal golf courses don't compete aesthetically with private clubs. Private clubs, you pay dues, and when they need more money, they raise the dues. We can raise the cost of playing golf at Quail Creek to such a point where we can reach diminishing returns and run off business. So we have to be very conscientious of that. The people expect us to provide them everything that they want at the same cost, and sometimes the math doesn't work when that happens. So, but be thinking about all those options. And Mayor and Lynn, I know you've been working on that a lot, but just I guess soon we'll be hearing maybe about what your overall vision is for that.
What I'd mentioned to Bobby is that I feel like there's a lost opportunity with income, really having a clubhouse that serves morning, to night. They have a bar area, but, they use miniatures. I mean, to me, this could be made into just a really nice community clubhouse, and I think that there's a lot more money to be gained
Your
there.
vision is to, although it may be public, make it feel like a special place. Don't make it feel like
Absolutely.
a mini course.
Absolutely. I think you can open it up so the center is more the place where whoever's working, even if it's one person, can serve all the needs of the golf course. Because right now, it being kind of departmentalized, you do have to have certain number of staff early in the morning to when they close. So anyway, we went over this with Bobby, and I don't think we would have to spend a lot of money to really make it just a place where people would want to come and spend time before or after they play a game. And I think we're missing that opportunity.
I look forward to hearing more of that vision. But in the meantime, how soon do we make a decision on these repairs?
Yeah, Jack, I met with David, and the mayor was there briefly, and Lynn and Bobby a few weeks ago, and we walked through and back to the, what this doesn't address. They talked about expanding the main dining area out to the porch, and you got to add another porch. And where do we as a city want to go with this, or how much do we want to spend on the current? Talking about interior renovations, nothing's been done except for some miscellaneous painting, and since it was built, you could easily throw a lot of good money and still have a something that's not efficient enough to.
Lipstick on the pig?
Yeah. And so my suggestion was don't get into any more drawings, for expansion until, we find out what we want to do.
Yeah. Well, you might even, put in 300 square foot of hardy board when you decide you're going to knock that wall out later. Whoops.
So add it to the long range.
Well, council, we need to, but in the meantime, we have to have, I guess, something. What is the, how long do we have? What's the bare minimum? Do you have a recommendation?
Really, the bare minimum would be replacing the exterior facade because, parts of the facility is closed down currently because of that. So we really need to get in there and fix those studs and get it open, and we know where all the rotten material is.
So replace the studs and put in new hardy board, and what about the windows? Because
that's primarily the cause of this.
Right, the cause.
Mm-hmm. So we're also saying to replace the windows that are up under the porch area, because those can be, if in the future y'all decide to expand that out, those can be moved from that wall out to the next wall, if that is the case. But that would, what we're doing, this emergency repair would allow the whole facility to be opened back up.
But if you remove all the stucco and put waterproofing on the sheathing and tape those existing windows, then you could plug along with those existing windows until we decide.
A lot of those windows are, the caulking is completely gone, and the
flashing.
Caulking secondary.
Flashing, flashing is gone.
It's not
Yeah,
there.
there's
That's the
not,
problem.
yeah.
So if you take it all off and you put the barrier on there, then you're
Yeah,
not where you need to be.
I think you're probably going to be defeating your purpose if you don't do something very substantial with those windows, because that's what's really causing the failure. Once OSB board gets saturated, it just deteriorates itself. It comes apart very quickly. It's not really built for sustained moisture environments.
And it does transmit that moisture into the insulation.
And it goes inside. Now, our plan is that on areas where the damage does not exist, in other words, if there was not a previous damage, our plan is to leave that in place. We're not planning on taking off all of the exterior sheathing at this point. We feel like that there's probably enough there that can be salvaged, and we might as well keep that. And that will keep us from having to tear out all the interior drywall too. And on the areas like what you saw where the studs are missing, yeah, those areas have got to come out, both exterior and interior. And so the studs will stay put, and what we'll need to do is sister up the existing studs that are missing the bottom part, where termites or whatever got it. And we'll have to replace the base plates where they're gone, and then reconnect it back, the roof structure back to the slab, or floor structure. So those would have to be reconnected. But in areas where they are not affected, we would propose leaving those and basically just use the moisture barrier with it sprayed on. Yeah, leaving the OSB board and using that moisture barrier system that we're talking about here to make it work now, and make it do what it didn't do originally.
My concern is if we put in new windows to solve that problem, and then we try to make it a more architecturally pleasing building, we're stuck with those windows. Well, I guess we wouldn't have to be, but it wouldn't make sense to buy the new ones and then replace them again if we were to go with something other than rectangular windows, I mean palladium windows, or whatever we might go with. It'd be hard to reuse them if we redesigned it.
Right.
So, a lot of things to consider, but at the same time, we need to do something out there so we can get that, get the pro shop out of the dining room and back into the pro shop.
I think the main thing inside is that if we do open it up and have just a central location for employees, that's going to save a lot of money on payroll, because you're not going to have, like I said, a number of people early in the morning and later at night, because you have that one person that's kind of serving a big open area. They can be, coming in to play golf. They can check out merchandise from the golf store and then also bring up food. So
But can they cook at the same time?
it depends on the time of day.
Because Bobby's done that, I believe.
Yeah, Bobby actually can do all of that. If he just wants to work the whole time, he can handle all of it. But anyway, I do think that's going to be not only a more efficient way to run the staff, but I think that it would take very little to increase the amount of money that is potentially, could be had in the clubhouse. Really do. If you create an ambiance where people want to stay and hang out, you're going to make more money. And I don't think it would be that hard to do.
Council, any comments? Any comments to push this along?
Well, we have to make some kind of decision, right, because we need to get on it sooner rather than later to get the building back up and running, right?
I think we need some, if we're ready. If we're not ready, we can kick the can down the road a couple more weeks, but we need to start making some decisions on this. Bobby, you want to make some comments?
Yes, I have a slide projector here. I may need Lynn to help me. I'd like to just take a few more minutes, if you'll help me.
Oh, okay.
I've never operated that. I
Okay.
can swing a club.
Let's see.
but I
There you
can't.
go.
All right, at the Quail Creek Clubhouse,
Just push the right
and I
button.
appreciate your time. And Lance is here, and Lance has worked a lot on the building, and the inefficiencies of the energy in there, Lance will agree, air conditioning is a problem. When those doors open, they suck all the air conditioning out. And there's just some things further in this plan. This is the deterioration of the concrete patio that we're faced with now, and I'm faced with roping this off immediately to keep patrons from walking on this, because this patio is fixing to fall in.
It has fallen in. It's
And then
just,
there's the evidence there, back patio. Here's part of the deck that we have right now. This is the way it looks now, and it's not a very good presentation to the patrons or the people that come out there. So in their repairs that we have to do at the clubhouse, we have to do that, but there's some exterior things that have to be done. And I think after we meet today, we need to meet again and decide how much do you want to expand or increase or make this clubhouse look better. I'm sorry. Thank you. As we talked about the ADA being compliant on the back porch, this is the only wheelchair ramp that we have up to the back of the clubhouse at this time, and it's not compliant. And that's going to have to be redone. We have some good ideas that would make the back look better. Here's the back door. This is there's no way to get a wheelchair or wheelchair accessibility into the back of the clubhouse, and several of their doors are like this. So the wheelchair ramps.
Leads to it.
No, yeah, the ramp leads to this, so you can't get in the clubhouse from the back. You get to the back, but you can't you can't get in the clubhouse. You have to enter the clubhouse from the front doorway. And this is going to have to be looked at. This is the back board where Fairhope has their sponsor board. This is what it looks like.
Oh, that's got to be fixed. I've got my name on that. Yeah.
That's right. So there's deterioration not just at the clubhouse, but on the back. There's just a lot of this that goes on. Now, this is the front window that's at the front entrance, and that's how it looks on the left. This is Lynn Messer's idea to put stained glass in the front, make a better presentation as our patrons and our customers walk in to Quail Creek. This is what it needs. It'd be a simple fix, but it needs to be done. This is not included in their plans. But we need to address how Quail Creek looks. This is the front entrance coming in. This is the pillars out front. This is not the water damage that happened to the inside. This has been going on for quite a while. I've asked in the past to have some of this addressed, and it's been swept under the carpet. So we need to address all of these issues that we have. Again, this is the pillars out front. In a nutshell, there's a lot of extra issues that we need to consider when you go to redo the clubhouse. And the mayor was talking about the inside of the clubhouse being more efficient. I agree with that. We have to have somebody work the pro shop. We have to have somebody work the grill. And there are times in the afternoon you could have somebody check out a green fee and sell a Coca-Cola. Now, when you have the restaurant open, you're going to have breakfast and lunch. You need a staff there to do that, also at tournament time. But late in the afternoon when it's slow, one person could sell a token and sell range tokens and sell a shirt and sell a carton of green fee because the grill will be closed. So there are some things we could do internally inside to make Quail Creek a better place for everybody to come. So I appreciate your comments on being positive about golf. Golf's on the upswing. You have a lot of houses coming into the area that are right next door to 11 and 12. They're fixing to go. The lots are being cleared right now. So we're in a great setting for Quail Creek, and I hope you'll take the opportunity to look long and hard, not just to look past just having these done, and look to the future of Quail Creek. So thank you for your time. The bathrooms inside are not ADA compliant in some places, and that building's...
They don't need to be. You can't get in.
Yeah. So the bathrooms need to be looked at as well. And Lance and I have some great ideas, and I appreciate Lance. I appreciate Lynn helping me put this together. But it's important for the future for golf, and thank you for your time. But we'd like to meet again to talk about some of these issues. Robert, I appreciate you coming out to look at it the other day. Thank you.
Let me ask you this tough question then. I know none of the people that play out there want to hear this. Budgeted for this.
Correct.
Did we have any? I don't think we had. We had a little money in the budget for this?
We had a little money to put for renovations inside, but they were kind of splash, little lipstick, as you say.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that people do pay taxes and they don't expect everything to be paid for with fees, but is there any wiggle room there? Is there a way to improve revenue at the course? We raised the membership dues a couple of years ago.
Yeah, to $50.
But we don't want to raise it, as I said earlier in my comments, we don't want to raise it to the point where we run everybody off. That's not going to do anybody.
Well, that would have to be a study, put the numbers in front of you. The numbers for the golf course, I think, are pretty simple. You just multiply a cart fee times $1, green fee times $1, the food and beverage. Our drink sales are up. Our food sales are down because we haven't had the staff or the kitchen or the facility to house a lot of the food services out there. We're just able in the new budget that you approved to hire a full-time person back in the grill, so that's going to help with our food. But our drink sales are up, and we haven't done really anything to increase the food sales. So we need to look at it.
Bobby?
I think so. More people are playing golf. We've had a full parking lot for a while, so I think so.
What's the size of that building?
7,140 feet is the inside. If we enclose the porch, while I'm on that, we would increase the square footage interior, the interior 1,400 square feet if you close in that porch. Now, Lance has a great idea of expanding that porch instead of putting a wooden deck back there that deteriorates like this one. Just expand and put a concrete porch back there. Take it out, have concrete, it'll last for a long time, and you can still have the atmosphere that we create on the back porch for tournaments and people to...
Does it make the most sense to grow it to the south? I mean, look at it.
Under the current conditions, yes. Where cart staging area is, when you do tournaments, you've done events out there, you've seen where the people gather and congregate between the driving range and the back of the clubhouse. That's where the traffic pattern is, yes. I think it would be.
And we have enough room between the existing
We have
car
plenty of
parking
room.
and the practice green, if we had to expand that to allow more carts there? Right?
Yes,
Or
that,
not
that,
more, but move
that
those
practice
out.
area out there in that lawn, yes, we do. You might even, I'm just gonna throw this out there while I have the floor. The cart barn could be moved across the street, be more efficient to house the carts across the street by the clubhouse. And it's in not good shape.
Most of the time, they're out of sight of all that. though.
Correct. Anyway, thank you for your time. I know we're running up on your
It's all right.
public
The,
meeting.
Well, council, any questions for him? Lance, did you have something you
At
want to?
what point, when we spend all this money on the renovations and the whole exterior, and we still, as you said, have lipstick on a pig, at what point does it become non-feasible to?
You just build a new clubhouse?
Right. And now, that's not my decision, but it's just a thought.
That's a tough call right there.
Yes, sir.
We had a money tree, that'd be
I
easy.
understand. And I think there's $150,000 in the budget.
So council, what I was thinking was to maybe think towards next year's budget and capital budget and kind of, at least you can open your mind up to what the possibilities are. I just need to know if anybody's ready to move forward with this, or do we need to go one more iteration? I'm kind of in the mindset we need one more iteration, maybe to get with the mayor and think about that vision. Maybe think about, you know, as we start into this, we will be, as this starts being an undertaking, we'll be into next year's budget probably about the time that we would spend more money to expand or whatever, you know.
Yeah, because I got to say, I mean, I was out there a month ago, a few weeks ago for a tournament, and I wouldn't want to put $250,000 into the exterior of that without doing something for the interior. I mean, it's certainly functional to some extent, but it's not, as the mayor said, you could dress it up and make it a place that people would really want to come.
I think what we need is also a vision, and I don't know if you have budget, or if we need to talk about budget for, I know all we talked about was structural concerns today, but, you know, what would the interior look like? What would make it more efficient? What are we paying for if we enhance the interior as well? Try to increase the efficiencies. I'm not totally convinced that one person can run the kitchen and run the pro shop, but there's parts of the day that they could sell a soda or a beer, but it gets pretty tough if you're serving food in there. You gotta have somebody else in there too.
I think we should value engineer the exterior renovation, do minor interior stuff, get the ADA stuff addressed, and put the lipstick on the pig until we come up with a plan. You know, it's going to be, even if we said let's go today, it's going to be a couple years. So we're going to sit there and let the pro shop operate out of the container in the parking lot. So I think we need to press forward with a value engineered process to get that exterior. You know, he's talking about the fight pond and everything else, and that's good. But if we're going to bulldoze the thing in 5 years, then why are we going to spend, you know, for premium products, you know, worry about energy efficiency for 5 years when we're going to tear it down?
When you talk about taking care of the ADA compliance, I think that's easy on the exterior, but when you talk about ADA compliant restrooms on the interior, that can be a big expense.
Well, we walked through, I don't know how much there is to address. I mean, there's, you know, bathroom, there's ADA stalls in there. Now, whether or not the number of it, you know, as far as
Pretty easy to
occupancy
make the
meets.
entrances
Right, I
ADA
mean,
compliant, right? Make the ramp ADA compliant so that people with disabilities can get in the door.
Right.
Is the door wide enough on the restrooms to be ADA compliant as they are now?
I think they're close in the ladies' room and compliant in the men's room.
Is that right?
I think we need a discussion of the longer-term picture before we know how to move forward right now.
Okay. Mighty quiet over there.
First.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Lance, thank you.
We got about 5 minutes. Does anybody want to hold on? I tell you what, if you have a committee update to give, you can give it at the council comments portion of the meeting. Yeah, is he prepared to speak too? Where's Dale?
Right there, third up.
Oh, there he is. Dale, did you want to speak? in regards to garbage collection, recycling?
Yes, sir. They're basically just looking at the finances of sanitation and just trying to bracket where we are on the revenue coming in and the expenditures going out. And so we'd like to study that and then come back with a presentation for the city council meeting maybe in the next couple of weeks. Here.
Okay, you can do that.
Yes, sir. And so we're looking at the revenue now. So it's good. We just had a lot of capital expenditures this year. And our revenue is good, but we're growing at such a rate, and we need to do some expansion. So we're just trying to address all those issues to give us a good, stable service.
And we know those capital expenditures are high this year because they kind of rotate through the different departments.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so we waited bulldozers, kind of the bigger equipment, and now this is our year to get some of that. So it's going to be a good.
Did we order a bulldozer yet? I don't remember seeing it.
It's out to bid right now.
Okay,
Yes,
it's
sir.
out to bid.
I haven't seen any results come back in yet, but we're looking forward to getting some in. That's an important piece of gear for us. It's not cheap.
Right.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Do you, out of the department heads, do you have anything to come before the council with? Just really quick, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes. Anything real pressing? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to give an update on our distribution model. We met Friday with Stewart Engineering, Lance Junkin, our consultant, and in the model he presented us each substation in a worst-case scenario outage and provided in that the best opportunities that we had to make, best of the moment, where in the event we lost a certain substation in a peak load environment, we would have to then shed that load to other substations. Each substation, we went through that model. In the end of that, we came up with some, he had some suggestions of some switches and capacitors that we had installed to make it all come to fruition. So, looks good.
That's good news. Are we still going to try to get standby generators from AMEA for the summer? We're looking, July is just right around the corner.
Right, and so this model, in the end, this model showed that we're actually sitting good. So
That's good.
that's,
I was hoping that you were, I wasn't sure you were saying that, but
Yeah.
I didn't know if that meant with an emergency generator.
No.
Okay,
with our current situation.
okay. All right. Thank you, Joe. Mr. Ames, can you come forward? Okay, hang on, I'll get to you, Richard. Dan, I was just handed something by Councilman Boone, and I think we need to all be aware of, and this was talking about the water tower painting, and we had a note that the bidding must start June the 19th and no later than June the 26th. So we're just a couple of weeks away from that. What do we need to do to get that going?
Very little. I will get with Richard and Dan McCrory.
Have the cell
Reason I
phone
say-
companies been notified 6 months in advance that those antennas have to come down?
Dan was taking care of that. McCrory, I assume that it has
Is he here?
been done. Is it taken
That
care
they
of?
have been notified?
Good.
That was the one long lead thing that we had. Okay, great.
The specifications were included in the last go-round of painting the water towers, the 2 million gallon tank, and it wasn't painted, but we still have the specifications. So tweaking those, getting the bid on the street is not going to be that awesome a time-consuming prospect.
Okay.
I just need to get with McCrory and get what he's got, tweak the specs, put them on the street.
Okay. And Todd, if you can just maybe give us a brief whenever, it can be an email that we feel confident that those cell phone providers are going to have the antennas off those towers in time, so we don't have any gotchas when it.
We've all been instructed about the timeframes.
Okay.
Okay, Richard, you and I have had a discussion. You said you had no problem being an engineer of record on this job?
Yeah, that's right. We've got the specs, and I'm
Really?
going to work with Thompson Engineering to make, I don't want to plagiarize anybody's work, but
Well, it's yeah, it's a cookbook, right?
And we've paid for those specs
But now
once
what we
before.
are gonna do is take some special precaution on the shrouding of the tank because we don't want the wind to blow into the substation that's right next door to it. And we'd like to move that fence and the grounding system out to accommodate some of that.
If you are an engineer of record, I know one of the benefits of hiring an engineer of record is that they send someone out there and they literally get very technical. They start measuring the depth of that paint and whatnot. Can we do that? We have some ultrasonic devices or something that we can do that with?
Hired inspector to do that.
Okay, excellent.
Generally, the inspector will do the report. He'll sign off on the report.
That's good. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Ames.
Also, we've got several phone calls from the cell phone providers, and they're looking for temporary locations while it's being painted. So we're working with them to find temporary locations for them to install the antennas.
Okay. Excellent. The last time we did this, I believe they set up all the portables at Stimson Field site. I don't know if we have anything available. Yeah.
That may be too far away from this side. We may have to work with the school board. And I think the letter, didn't you say something about contacting the school board for temporary?
Oh, yeah, it's a good idea.
So it may be on their own responsibility to take care of it.
That is their responsibility, but we were trying to help them with it.
Right.
Okay, so that location, if you don't know, is right there just to the east of the old intermediate school, the portion of the building that's not in use, but still just east of that property.
No time is limited.
Yes, sir.
Just had a few things. I'm glad I made copies so I can leave them all with you. We've had swim advisories posted on the bay twice now in the last month. And there's been a lot of communication through social media. I think Shirley's been doing some of that. And so I'm proposing that we do a water quality study that basically allows us to monitor each watershed that goes into the bay from what I assume is people are thinking it's a wastewater issue. And we want to try to nip that in the bud, or we want to try to find any issue that is coming from any of those drainage basins that we can find. So I'm proposing that we do a water study analysis that monitors stormwater events and does some maybe 12-hour, then 24-hour, then 48-hour monitoring of the outfalls, and then maybe some bay monitoring is coincidental to that. Dr. Douglas has indicated that the bay and the dynamics of the water draining down the bay kind of create a circular pattern in front of Fairhope, which may be half the reason we're seeing some of this stuff on a regular basis. If you put a little bit of extra bacteria in the water that comes from rain events anyway, no matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're in Fairhope or Foley or anywhere else. But and then you combine that with it just circulating around in a nutrient-loaded area, which is from the fertilizers or the runoff too, and it's just going to be a problem. So that may be some of what we're going to study with Dr. Douglas and some of his debate. But anyway, I've done some email back and forth with different people, and that's on the actual study. It kind of gives you some details. In order to do the test ourselves, it'll cost $7 for each of the blanks, and then we need to invest in one more incubator to do that with, and that's about $1,000 to $1,500 from Tim Manuel. And I would recommend that we go ahead and do that, and then we can respond at any time of the day and get those samples tested before. There's a time requirement when you collect those samples. And then there was an issue about the moratorium. I didn't see that on the agenda tonight, but I have communicated with several of you at different times on the moratorium. That's some of those email correspondences that go with that. And then lastly, I have gone back and forth with Jerry McManus with Baldwin County Sewer. I don't know where that particular agreement is, if we're going to extend any kind of a treatment service with them and negotiate that, that's fine. But July 13th, I think, is coming up. And these are the last series of emails that I've done with that. And it also includes the agreement that I kind of put together just as something to consider. So that's what I want to talk to you about. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, I know I need to get with you on several things, and I would back to the bacterial levels being risen. I don't know if it's all coming from the geese, but it certainly is coincidental with the geese every year when the population of geese
Yeah, and
is
I
here.
would suppose we fill up the duck pond and do something else there if that'll run them off.
We had
I mean, I think there's probably more people that enjoy the water in the bay than enjoy watching the ducks walk around in that area.
I will be getting 100 emails tomorrow.
The mayor, thanks you very much for that.
That's just my opinion.
Okay. All right, council, let's go ahead and adjourn. Let's take maybe a 4 or 5 minute break. We can get right back in here as soon as possible. We're well over our time. We need to start our council meeting, but we'll let them break these tables down and we can.
You want this?